Look at this. Market's gapping down. As I wrote in the notes in the top of the game plan, I assume this is just Europe related in terms of the move the Spanish government made overnight against Catalonia. I didn't read a lot about it. I just saw the headlines that the Spanish government was going to move to just basically take away autonomy of the region. So, talking with friends recently, I'm sure you've been talking amongst yourselves as well, like what could possibly get the market, the tone of the market to change. Certainly, the market doesn't care if Trump is a bloviating idiot. In his case, I think unless missiles start flying into North Korea or out of North Korea, you're not going to see anything. Or if Mueller goes after Trump for impeachment. But globally, speaking outside the U.S., the situation in Spain definitely has been heating up the last couple of weeks. And so if there's armed conflict there, and that certainly can be very destabilizing. And so we'll see. So in situations like this, where you have the market finally gap down, you want to see, a bid usually comes in, people are like, oh, gap down, I'm just going to buy. I haven't had a gap down in a while. They don't care. We're not even like up 1% from the high. A normal down move in the market used to be 3 to 5%. And that's where you would get in. But in the meantime, you see that initial buying, and what happens 255 is what we were watching for the last week or so. We were holding above there. If we come back up towards 255, which it looks like we already did earlier, we got up to 90 cents or so. Can we actually sustain a move up here and hold above? And if we can, then perhaps the market will shake it off. But if we come up here and very quickly fail, then you see us back down below, let's say 254.70, we can start to think about some downside. IWM. So we had gone down to 148.5 a couple of days ago. We closed below 149. I got long a little bit of the ETF against a hedge against my puts, which turned out to be good. Putting that hedge on. Now it looks like maybe I'll get a chance again to buy at the same spot I bought a couple of days ago here as a hedge again. Still have the puts that expire tomorrow. What I need to happen is a move to really make some money on these. I need basically the market to come into 148. On the upside here, I want to say 149.20 to 149.35 would be the spot that I'd be looking for some sort of a failure in IWM. So we're getting into earnings season. The one thing that you'll probably start to see more, I will do, especially going into next week, is not really just trading the open and being around a little bit the rest of the day. I will be on the desk most of the day, more actively trading, taking advantages of those second moves right after the first 90 minutes, and then also in the afternoon. For myself personally, I really need to be sitting in my seat, watching the market, watching the stocks, to be active later in the day, as opposed to kind of putting on my main trades in the first 30, 45 minutes, and then kind of keeping trailer positions in on the stuff that's working. Start to do a little bit more trading later in the day. And certainly this is, during the height of earnings season, that's when you do want to be more active than just the open and the close. All right, Adobe. So Adobe, they gave an update, I guess having an analyst day or something like that. A lot of raised price targets. Here's the daily on it, just so we can put this in context. And they're killing it. So it was in a pretty good uptrend for a few years, and then the uptrend accelerated. I think on their move to the cloud, just a lot of subscription revenue, software as a service. And, it had this one little down move here from 144 to 132, which is about 10%. And it had this gap down here from 156 where it touched this consolidation support. And they gave a good update on guidance, which is going to cause a breakout above the prior high, which was 157.5. It was solid guidance. 20% year-over-year growth. If you do the quick back of the envelope numbers that they gave for updated EPS guidance, it's 30 times, growing at 20%, 30 times multiple. 1.5 times growth is, for a secular bull market, is not that expensive, really. So if there is going to be profit taking at some point in the next few days, it's one that I think institutions will buy. So keep that in mind for those of you who look to trade higher time frame pullbacks to get long, strong stocks. For today, so we had the initial reaction above 160. Second leg took us to 167. So these are all-time highs. Other than the high of the pre-market, there is no real resistance. If you do that 30 multiple, 165 is you kind of have this here. Pre-market high, 165, psychological level, 30 times the updated guidance. Initial reaction, if it's going to fail, make a lower high here and fail, this would be the area where I'd be looking for it to come into. What did I put for support? I put 62 and 60. So obviously just use the consolidation from the after hours. So if we were going to get something similar to like Netflix on the day of earnings, where you got profit taking and you got a flush through 60, then you'd look for the kind of the bounce back up, something like that. This is, I'm going to be watching this 165 to 165, 30 right on the open. If it fails here, I have no trouble looking for a quick 2-3 point down move on the short side, understanding that the backdrop is quite strong for them. GILD, G-I-L-D. So big news there was they spent $12 billion on Kite. Kite's drug got approved. It's going to it's the new wave of cancer drugs. Apparently it's going to be about a $400,000 or $500,000 for treatment. I think it's a one-shot deal. You get it, they mix it in with your immune system, and boom, it kills the cancer. It's quite incredible. You can see just want to put this in context. So when they announced the buy here, it had this huge breakout, and they topped out at 85. And so then it came back down here. Certainly a buy. I don't remember why I didn't buy it into $80. So we have been seeing a little bit of a sell the news situation on drug approvals recently. We saw that with EXEL the other day. AERI is really the only one that's held a gap. Most of the other ones have sold. We saw that yesterday, and RXDX was 18.5 in the pre-market, ended up going out of 16. And so it looks like people already faded this here from this 83.50 area. Next, what do I have for? And I got 82, 83. Let's zoom in. So 8 o'clock in the institution started trading. There was selling here below 82. So going to be tough on the long side unless you see it get through this area right here. If these sellers get taken out and it starts to hold above, certainly fine to play on the long side up to 83. But then you got to deal with possibly a little bit of trouble here as well. It's going to be very liquid today. It could trade, when they announced the takeover, it traded 2 days in a row over 20 million shares. Could easily do 15 to 20 million shares today, double its normal volume. Happy to trade it in both directions. Sellers keep control here, though. You can look for a move down to $80 in the flush through 80, and then we'll kind of see from there. The next one is eBay, which the numbers were okay. I thought the guidance was a little bit light, and so I thought that was what caused the down move. Let's look at this one. Put this one in perspective, because this one has had quite the run as well. So it had topped out here at $33. Then it gapped down. I assume this was earnings here. Kind of did the soft gap fill, and then been trending up since in this up channel. So you have some room here on the downside on this up channel. It's 36.30 in the pre-market. But if it was going to get sold today, I mean, look at this move here from 34.5 to 38. There's not a lot. 36, I guess. And it's almost there. So 36. What I put on the sheet. Yeah, I put 34.70 and 34. So I guess my mindset was kind of like, if this gets taken out here, this recent support, you're looking at a move to here. All right, after hours, let's see, the bounce high in the after hours was 36.60. So it looks like you're going to have an opportunity to see what it looks like here, right on the open, 36.5, 36.60. I'm going to put some on the short side here, stop above 80 cents. And if it comes back down, I'm going to watch to see use 36. I put that as an inflection on the sheet. What that means is if it's holding above 36, play it on the long. If it's holding below, trade it on the short. After hours low looks like it touched 35 there. So that is eBay, which is another very liquid stock, trades the same daily volume as Guild. It's lower price, so it's going to be a tighter spread and less risky than Guild, most likely. UAL. UAL, remember we shorted this a couple weeks ago. I started shorting, I think, at 68. It went all the way to 69 and change before reversing pretty hard. It had gotten up to 69.5, then came back down to 68. Next morning, made the lower high, eventually came into 66.5. So if we look at today, it's already tested kind of this prior high and where it gapped to and broke out from was 66. So that's going to kind of be the interesting level. Does it hold 66 here, 55.90, 65.90, and pop back up to 67? What did I put for resistance? 67.5. Yeah. So I guess my thought was it was just so wild this day here. It went much higher than I would have expected until the sellers started to take control. That I want to give it a little bit of upside, 67.20 to 67.50. This area right here if it tops. And then if it gets hit, 64.5. What did I put on there? Yeah, I did. That's my bottom support. I would think people would be willing to buy it right there. All right, next one, IBM. So IBM, again, this was a psychological expectations, all that, because the numbers weren't particularly good. It's just that it's such a beaten down name, they never beat earnings. The earnings were okay, which was enough to get people to go crazy, at least temporarily. So what did that do? It got this gap fill right here, above 158.5, natural resistance at 160. It failed at this, this earnings gap here. The top of it was 162. I would think it would be pretty hard for it to get above this. But if you do get a close above there, that does bring this gap into play. So right on the open, the first move was up. It had trouble at 160 initially. They held 159.20 twice. And they consolidated above 160, never had a real up leg above it, just consolidated here, broke to the downside. So interesting, it's down a little bit in the pre-market, maybe, well, I guess the market's down a little bit. So the way I'm looking at this is 159.30, 160. So I put 160 on the sheet as resistance, but this 159.30 did hold into the afternoon. If it can't get above that there, you could make a play on the short side to 158. If it gets above 159.5, you want to kind of see what does it do between 160 and 161, which was yesterday's afternoon consolidation. Yeah, easy on the all caps there. Again, they're just like these little subtle things. What I try to do in the morning meeting. And obviously, this is the morning meeting is not a training program or a training class. That's what we have DNA for, and the other training programs is kind of just to give you a quickly as I can, just like the little things that I'll use like that beyond just the normal price action and the important price points is just to give you things to kind of think about. It came into play also yesterday. We'll get it into, actually it was 2 days ago with that merger situation where a lot of people would be seeing that weakness on the open, and I forget the ticker, but it came down to 17, ended up trading up to 20. those merger situations, there's other things to look at. So we try to give you a little bit more color. A good example yesterday was, or 2 days ago, was Netflix. Is momentum stocks like Netflix, Tesla, NVIDIA, even if they have good news and they're going to finish the days at the high, right on the open, almost always, there's a quick 2 to 3 point, 5 point profit-taking move right on the open, which if you know the levels and you get in there, you can capture a pretty quick bounce and then see what happens. RXDX. So this was one, we've been talking about the selling in some of these gap ups on the biotechs recently. Most of them have been failing. And if there's good volume in the pre-market, you get short in the pre-market. In this case, we kind of were saying it was making lower highs in the pre-market. If it kind of broke to the downside here, we would look for, there wasn't really much in terms of support below 17 until 15. It did do most of the dropout right on the open, then it was kind of moving sideways for a couple hours. The way I look at this is kind of 1630 to 1650 resistance. If it takes that out at some point today, tomorrow, over the next few days, then you look for the move back up to $18. A flush down to 15, which was our next major support, would be interesting as well for a support play. And then Cree, which just made a crazy move. I think I tried to short it right here on the open. I actually made money short it. I wasn't, I'm laughing because it ended up going to $35. So here's the context on the daily. I did this a few years ago. And again, I made a lot of money on the long side like 5-10 years ago. Because it had this breakout above 40 and it went to 80. And I was looking for it to go to 50, 60. Went up to 80 and then came down to 20. I was shocked that it went up again. But now, it's been consolidating in this range here for a couple of years and it closed above it. So really, this 38 to 40 comes into play. I have no idea what the fundamental reason for this is, but it just it broke out of a multi-year consolidation. So that's kind of the thought process. So the high where it failed yesterday was 35. I'm sure people were looking for, the failure at 35, maybe looking for it to come back down to 32. That's a reasonable thought process. 32 and a half, 32. If it came back into this area here, I would expect there to be buyers. And you get a close, a few day closes above 34 and a break to the upside, then that high 38 to 40 area is what I'd be thinking about. It's a lot of volume, a lot of people buying in this move from 32 to 35 yesterday. That is it. As always, be patient and good luck.
Hope you enjoyed that video. You can actually watch that video if you're subscribed to our Trader 90 before the market even opens. What stocks are in play? What levels in those stocks are important? And how we might go about attacking that stock. That's Steve Spencer, 20-year veteran trader, laying it out there every morning before the market even opens. A really, really powerful tool to start your session off on the right foot. So right now we're offering a trial that you can take advantage of to access this meeting and other meetings throughout the day. We have a meeting at 11 a.m. Eastern where you can sit down with Mike Bellafiore and listen to him talk about what's going on during the morning session, what stocks were in play, what the best trade opportunities were, as well as maybe some things that we're looking at heading into the afternoon session. So I really encourage you to take advantage of that trial.